So as we head into the criminal trial of Donald Trump's potentially last week, with the jury about to deliberate with a verdict that could occur as early as soon as summation is done. So if summation's finished on Tuesday, potentially today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, a verdict could be imminent in the Trump criminal case. So Donald Trump and his MAGA team, his legal team, his spokespeople, they're out there pushing the lamest excuse imaginable. They are saying that one of the reasons that the jury may rule against Donald Trump, that they may vote to convict Donald Trump, is because they were not sequestered. And by not being sequestered over the holiday weekend, they developed a case of TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, and that because they've become infected by TDS, that may make them convict Donald Trump. Well, I think it's the fact that there is overwhelming documentary, text, business records, testimony, and other evidence that demonstrates that Donald Trump falsified the business records knowingly, including his own financial disclosure statements, his own government ethics disclosure statements, all reflecting that there was a reimbursement made to Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's checks that were signed by Donald Trump. How about that? And so much more. But let's just take a look at what Donald Trump and his team's posting. So here's what Donald Trump writes. He goes, this is what Trump writes. He goes, "Can anyone believe that the Soros-backed DA, Alvin Bragg, was able to get a delay of 7 days to his corrupt and unconstitutional case against me with no sequester? Legal expense equals legal expense! Exclamation point, whatever that means. The only thing Bragg has going for him is the corrupt and highly conflicted judge, which is a lot. By the way, I believe that to be a gag order violation. Donald Trump attacking the jury for not being sequestered or sequestered over the Memorial Day holiday. While Donald Trump saying that, he then sends his spokesperson, Alina Habba, out also to say that it's potential that what happened over the Memorial Day weekend and the break since the testimony last concluded was that the jury contracted TDS. And that's one of the things that they're very concerned about, and the Trump legal team. Here, play this clip.
You're not wrong. The only counter argument to that, and of course it's the lawyer in me to give you the counter, but the counter argument to that is these are not sequestered jurors.
True. They
should have been sequestered because in my opinion, these jurors are handling something that is completely unprecedented and unwarranted in America. And for them to be able to be out and about on a holiday weekend with friends and families who have opinions, who are watching the news, TV's on the background at the pool party, I have serious concerns. If they're left-winging and they're watching MSDNC, as my client calls it, or CNN, they're not going to get fair news. They're going to hear, but by the way, they have been saying that this case is a hoax, which is shocking. But they know that the jurors are out there listening, and I have concerns about that. Time can be on your side. Sometimes you're right there. But in this instance, I have worries about them going back to whatever friends might have Trump derangement syndrome, forgetting all sense of reality and coming back and sitting in that box and saying, you know what, I've got to take one for the DNC. I don't want that. I want law to fact, because if we can get that, we will win. We will not just get a hung jury, we will get an acquittal. So let's see.
But yet,
seriously, first off, again, Donald Trump and his spokesperson saying these things about the jury, I believe to be a clear violation of the gag order, not allowed to make any statements about the jury. I believe that's either direct or implied threats at the jury by both Trump's legal spokesperson, who's directed to go out there and make statements like that, and by Donald Trump, basically saying, oh, if the jury doesn't side with me, it must be because they're out there, contracting some made-up disease called TDS. I mean, how bizarre and how ridiculous can you get right there? But that's what they are out there pushing. At the same time, what Donald Trump is also saying is that the jury may have TDS, and also the judge, Justice Bershon, is unfairly prohibiting our legal team from putting on a reliance on counsel defense where we could blame the legal advisors and throw them under the bus for the reason that these business records were falsified. Donald Trump's other posts, he's been making these posts all weekend, he goes, in addition to the fact that I did nothing wrong, NDAs are totally legal and commonly used, and that virtually every legal scholar and expert says in written form that this is a case which has no merit and should not have been brought. My lawyers have informed me that the highly conflicted and corrupt judge, Juan Merchan, will not allow reliance on counsel, which virtually everyone is allowed to use, as an additional, though not needed because I did nothing wrong defense. This, quote, case, which could have been brought 7 years ago but wasn't because it has no merit, is a disgrace. It was only begun to interfere with crooked Joe Biden's political opponent. Me, reliance on counsel, make America great again, exclamation point, random capitalized words, just randomly put the word reliance of counsel. Let's be very clear. A reliance of counsel defense requires the criminal defendant first to waive attorney-client privilege, and two, to testify about what they relied on to commit the crime. A reliance of counsel defense is, in essence, an admission that the crime took place, but what you're saying is you don't have the requisite mens rea or mental state because your lawyer forced you to do it. That's not the defense your lawyers are making. I'm not really clear what defense you and your lawyers even put on, because you claim that the $420,000 payment to Michael Cohen was for legitimate legal expenses, is what you said. Remember, legal expenses equal legal expenses, not hush money payment reimbursements. But then it would also require that you take the stand. And you were too cowardly to take the stand. It would require that you also waive attorney-client privilege. So your lawyers didn't avail themselves to the reliance of counsel defense because you refused to testify, despite claiming to the media and to all your MAGAs that you were going to take the stand and that you were going to testify. So you can't have a reliance of counsel defense. Now, what your lawyers tried to do is assert something called a presence of counsel defense. They made that up. That doesn't exist in the law. They said if a lawyer was present or somehow involved in the transaction, that should be able, they should be able to make that argument to the jury. There's no such thing as a presence of counsel defense. There's a reliance of counsel defense. Go and testify and blame your lawyers, waive attorney-client privilege, and then you can admit that a crime was committed, and then you can make that defense. But you refuse to do that, of course. And then Trump also goes, in addition to the fact that I did nothing wrong, NDAs are totally legal and commonly used. By the way, remember the video I did from this weekend? If not, go and look at it, that Donald Trump had his own wife, Ivana, under an NDA, and then he made her retract statements about sexual abuse that she had previously made under an under oath deposition. Go back and watch the video. Trump wrote a cease and desist letter to this movie called The Apprentice that chronicles what they allege Donald Trump did and what Ivana alleged Donald Trump did to her. But then you put your own wife under an NDA. And I'm sure you have, I don't know if you have her, but I'm sure you have Melania under some sort of NDA or deal as part of her post-nuptial negotiations with you. Totally normal stuff. Post-nuptial renegotiations for her to show up at events and things like that. Totally normal behavior right there. But we're not saying that NDAs are unlawful, though some NDAs now are deemed unlawful. NDAs in connection with sexual abuse are deemed to be unlawful in many states right now. And corporate NDAs that silence employees in certain contexts are now actually deemed unlawful. But this case is a falsification of business records case to commit further crimes. And so what are you even saying? What's the point that you're trying to make? And then finally, Donald Trump's Memorial Day post, because it was Memorial Day weekend. Although, as Peter Henline talks about, Donald Trump has spent the entire weekend talking about himself and whining about himself and complaining about all of the various cases against him over and over again, just whining. Donald Trump posted the following: Happy Memorial Day to all, including the human scum that is working so hard to destroy our country. Donald Trump then goes on to further defame E. Jean Carroll. He goes and attacks Justice Engoron. And then he goes on to say, now for Merchan! Exclamation point, which appears to be a threat directed at Justice Merchan. So as we are heading into deliberations, as we are heading into closing arguments, summations, Donald Trump and the MAGA spin being the ultimate victims that they are, is that the jury's lack of being sequestered, by the way, which is very rare for juries to be sequestered anymore. It's not a normal thing that happens. That the fact that juries weren't sequestered, they contracted a made-up thing called TDS, and that's what's going to result in a guilty verdict against him. Come on here. Really? I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million together. Thanks for watching.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.